Recording in progress. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to School of Speech. School of Speech is presented by SpeechTherapyPD, and it is the podcast dedicated to all of us school-based SLPs so we can come together to learn boldly, think critically, and shine a light on the incredible work that we are doing every single day in our schools. I'm your host, Carolyn Dolby, and I am so glad you are here. Today's episode is titled Advancing Autonomy as SLPs in Schools. Now, when we think about autonomy in the schools, it can kind of feel a little complicated, right? Yeah, because we work inside a system. There's policies, mandates, staffing shortages, caseload pressures. I mean, the struggles are real, right? And sometimes we feel like our schedules, our service models, and even our professional decisions are driven more by those systems than our expertise. And that's a bummer. But what if autonomy isn't about having total control? What if it's about understanding the system well enough to influence it? That's exactly what we are unpacking today. All right, I am so honored to welcome Dr. Barbara Moore. Dr. Moore is a professor and program director for the Masters of Science in Speech Language Pathology at the University of Southern California. She previously served for over 26 years as Director of Special Education in California, where she developed and expanded services for students with disabilities. She is an ASHA board recognized specialist in child language and has held multiple national leadership roles, including Vice President for Planning, President of the Council of State Association, and President of the California Speech, Language, and Hearing Association. I'm not sure what she hasn't done, but guess what else she's done? She has also co-authored a book. It's called Speech Language Pathologists in Public Schools, Making a Difference for America's Children, and has lectured widely on leadership and school-based practice. All right, Dr. Moore, are you with us? Yay, there
All
you
right.
are. Hi.
Thank you. Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you for that lovely introduction.
Oh my gosh, no, we are the lucky ones having you today. You are a wealth of knowledge. And so thank you for being with us today. I have a little bit more housekeeping and then I can't wait to get into the meat of what we're talking about today. I want to remind everyone that every episode of School of Speech is offered for 0.1 ASHA CEUs through Speech Therapy PD. And if you are joining us live, hi everyone joining us live. Thank you so much for being here. If your state license requires live CEUs, be sure to pop over to your Speech Therapy PD account and complete all the required modules, including clicking complete course before the end of today so you receive credit because learning counts. Now, also if you're live, I'd love to know who you are and where you are. So we will only be using the chat for the podcast. So please, please, please jump in the chat, say hi, let us know where you're at because I really love seeing our community showing up from all over. I just love it. All right, so while you guys, hi Julie, hi Christine. All right, while you guys are jumping in, let me do our disclosures. All right, here we go. For me, I am a salaried employee of Portland Public Schools in Oregon, and I receive compensation from Speech Therapy PD for hosting School of Speech Dream Job. Dr. Moore is an employee of the University of Southern California and receives a salary for her position there. USC is not connected to this presentation. She's also authored more than just that book, but she's materials with ProEd and SuperDuper, and she receives royalties for those products. These relationships are not related to the content, though, of what we're talking about today, but she is a wealth of knowledge, so go check her out. She has no non-financial to disclose either. All right, done with that. All right, here we go. All right, hi, oh, I'm seeing everybody. Hi, everyone. Oh, lots of California, Barbara.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'm seeing that. And from Orange County, from my home. Right.
Woohoo!
I'm an Orange County girl.
Love it. All right. Well, we're talking about autonomy today, and I think that's really um, really current for us because many of us SLPs truly, I know the SLPs in my department, we just had a department meeting yesterday, feel like we aren't always in full control of our professional lives. So like if we can start, I'd like to get your perspective on what you think are the key issues that prevent SLPs from feeling like they are in control of their own work in our specific setting, in the school setting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for the invitation to be here. And
My pleasure.
that, it doesn't take much to, somebody to say, hey, you want to come over here and have a chat about school services? It's like, okay, yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. And thank you, everybody. Of course, after all my many years in schools and even now working in the university, I so appreciate that people go to work really early in the morning and work really hard all day. And then you come home and you're trying to organize the family so I can do this, continuing education because I care so much about my job. And so to have you here and spend time with us and be part of this conversation is really important. I think the timing on this is really interesting for me personally because I just finished teaching the professional issues class to our second year graduate students. So they're in their spring semester at USC. We have a 6 semester program. So they have one more semester. They've got to finish up the spring and then have the summer. And I've just been reading their finals, like what did you learn in this class? And they said, we talked a lot about leadership and advocacy. And some of what the students said back to me is, oh, it never occurred to me that advocacy could be for myself, could be for the people that I work with, could be, yes, of course, for our students, because we pound that into their head, right? But really, really knowing that this is within our power. And I think that this whole topic of autonomy is really one of the things that I'm happy to talk about. I did the like, okay, I'm just gonna, because we're all language people, right? So I did the like, okay, let's look up to see what Wikipedia says autonomy is. And they actually come up with good, I don't know who does this, AI or whoever. It says autonomy is the right or state of self-governance, independence, and the freedom to act, decide, or think for oneself without outside control. And really, in the years that I had opportunities to work on ASHA boards and councils and with CASHAs, the California Speech and Hearing Association, and in school services as a special ed director, the idea that we really do have a say in what goes on. And that, yes, there are laws and policies, and I'm grateful for those laws and policies. As a matter of fact, especially now, it's really important that we have laws that mandate services to children with disabilities, that mandate that you have a team of professionals to conduct assessments, that mandate that we need to have speech and language services, right, for individuals, that mandates that we go from 0 to 22, and no matter where you are in this country, you go. So I think part of autonomy is also remembering, and I'm not really totally a Pollyanna, but I can be when I get on this soapbox. So it's like, remember that we have control. We get to decide who's on our caseloads. We get to decide how we design our assessments. We get to decide what kind of service delivery model we have, what kind of schedule. Now, do other people want to have a say in it? Yes. And actually, thank goodness, because it would be really boring if we just worked with ourselves. So when we look at this, like, what is it that are really those big issues? We want to know that in schools and in our professional organizations that people are advocating for us to go ahead and know how to do things. And when we find that other people also want to have an opinion about how we do things, sometimes that doesn't feel so good. But I think one of the answers, and jump to answers later, but is having that communication about why I do the things that I do, when I do the things that I do, and how I do the things that I do. And, when I was cautioned when I first came into the field, oh, don't be a know-it-all speech pathologist. And I thought, I spent a lot of time in school and I know a lot of things. And then I shortly realized that in schools, the teachers are the ones with the power. So I wanted to be their friends. And one of the things that was really critical was figuring out what they needed, where their issues were, because they've got issues, and then kind of shaping how I'm driving my services and how I'm driving what I need to do for that child in terms of what that teacher's perspective is. Now, that doesn't mean they take over or they get to tell you what to do, but really showing that collegial respect. So we all want to go to work feeling like we are using the skills and the talents that we are trained in to the best of our ability. And as a program director now for a Master of Science in Speech Pathology program, I know how hard we train everybody, our students, the clinical educators that we count on to help us train our students. Schools are in and of themselves places of kind of tension, and especially when you work in special education. And the other thing is, every morning, parents send their children to school, and this is the thing that's near and dearest to their heart. And so when things don't go well, and something happens with their children, either at school or just at home, we're wrapped up in that, and so sometimes that piece of really giving the parent a little bit of our gratitude, of our grace, to say, yeah, this is really hard. You've got a hard job, that kind of thing. So looking at those people who are the ones that sometimes give us the most grief, if we can step back and say, okay, what's going on in their world, that helps a little bit. So let's look at some of those factors. And I've always kind of starting with what are these different tough spots that we're looking at. So again, we want to start with knowing we make the decisions about who we work with, about what we're doing. But in our work world, we work with lots of people, lots and lots and lots of people. We work with many bosses. We worked with people who think they're our bosses that aren't our bosses.
Yeah,
right?
I'm hoping that you can shed
right?
some light, give us some wording on that one too. Yeah.
And so some I've identified, this is, a new word that we have now is an influencer. Well, I think we always know what the influencer. So there are some people who are like by position, like the principal or the director of special education or the assistant soup or whoever, whatever. But then there are the people who are really the ones that are in the background that are maybe making some challenges for us. So, and that can be, there can be aides, can be the union, can be, again, the kind of outside people. So I think one of the big things is to really grow a good a vision of who those folks are in your environment, in the school that you work in the schools, plural, that you work in, because one of the things that's absolutely hilarious is that you work at one school and this is the set of hidden curriculum. And then over here, there's a different set of hidden curriculum, right? So maybe the principal, the vice principal are in charge in one place, and then in another place, it's really the chair of the special education department that is the one who's in charge. And that person doesn't have an administrative credential at all. And they're kind of bossing around. So I think my big things in working with the people is just developing those relationships with them. And relationships are really incredibly strong and are so important. And we teach a lot now in schools about, or in the master's program, about interprofessional practice.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody really taught me about that when I was in school. Like, it wasn't even thought that we should go talk to the psychologist or anybody else. And now we know that we need to be those partners and figure out, what are they thinking about this student? What are they thinking about what our recommendation is? Soliciting that information and then saying, what is it that we think, and not asking, like going in and being the expert model of, like, I'm going to tell you everything that's going to do. I think being visible is really critically important. It's really important to get into those classrooms, to sit with the students, to watch what's going on, to watch what the teacher's dealing with, not just with the individuals that are on your caseload, but like in her whole class, what's the dynamics? And there may be some things. So working with that team and figuring out some things. We can talk about some more of that later. The other issue, of course, is the politics.
Yeah.
And the politics is in the school, it's in the SPED department, it's in the speech group, it's in the district, it's with the school board, it's with the volunteers, it's with the parents, it's like all over the place, right? And it goes on and on and on and on. So we can't pretend that the politics doesn't exist. We have to, again, say, where's the place I want to be in this politics? How do I want to interface with these people? And that might include, putting ourselves in some situations that are uncomfortable, joining some committees that wouldn't be our choice, going and asking the principal, like, fill me in on what your perspective is on this, and always having a trusted mentor in your community that you can say, what in the world is going on? And I have to tell you that, especially because I was in administration, some of the times I felt that my best trusted mentors were people who had worked in that district or that school before, who could tell it to me straight, right? Who I could call up and say, okay, this is what just happened today. I'm not sure that I'll ever go back there again, but I have to go back tomorrow. But I have to go back tomorrow. So give me a perspective on it so that I don't spend all night turning over. So the people, the politics, and then there is the laws, the attorneys, and the families, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the one of the things that hopefully we know, and hopefully your situation is, that the attorney is on your side. The attorney is your friend. And I can tell you, because I've known a lot of these attorneys over the years, that the attorneys know that the speech pathologists are the smartest people in the room, right? They know that you write the best reports. They know that you have a strong opinion. They know that you followed the laws. They know that you have documentation. And that's the piece that is critical to them. I knew, well, one of the best days, I'll say it this way, one of the best days of my career was the day the attorney that I worked with, who I'd worked with for many years, came up to me in a conference that he was presenting at, and he said, I really want my daughter to be a speech pathologist.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow.
because he had worked with all these speech pathologists. And I want to tell you that the world is a funny place. That individual's daughter graduated from my program 2 years ago. So, and it was not an easy path, right? Because somewhere in there, there was COVID and there was all this other stuff. But
Yeah.
when people are saying to you, this is what I want my kids to do, right? Then that's a really important thing. The law is also our friend.
Yes.
And
I'm
we
glad that you're
have
getting
to,
there. Yeah, come
and
on.
we have to keep up with the law. You have to keep up with the decisions, what it looks like. If you know somebody that was in a due process hearing or something, that's a growing experience. Let's talk about that and not make it a scary thing. Actually, one of the nicest, it sounds weird, about a decision about being in a due process hearing is that there's a judge there that tells everybody to be quiet and only one person can talk at a time, as opposed to those out of control IEP meetings that you've been in.
Yeah.
So, like, here's the bright side of that. And of course, families are on a continuum too, in terms of why they're in a dispute with you or what they're pushing for. And so as we're thinking of our own, like why I come to work, what my why is, we have to remember that their why is because, and we started with this, that children are their most valuable asset. And so we have to try and give them some grace. I used to always tell, as a SPED director, I would tell my faculty, hey, you make sure that you have a relationship with the parent. Let them be mad at me. Let them be mad at the
Yes.
district, right? But you continue to show them that you like their kid, right? And that you're doing those kinds of things. And that's really, really important. I'll just have two more, and I'll just say them really in terms of the big issues. Um, the the culture of your school is different from one school to another, and it's different from one district to another.
Oh,
It's
for
one of
sure.
the most interesting things is when you go to work in, even in the same district, how different things can be in terms of when we schedule our IEP meetings, when we, how we conduct the meeting, who's on what team, those kinds of things. And it's really important to go in and be part of it. And then if it needs to be changed, how are you going to do that? We'll talk about that in a bit. But the culture of the school and the culture of the district and the culture of, being your SLP team is really important. And we have lots that we can influence in that. So that's a big place where our autonomy can grow and not let people like trample over you. And then the last thing I'll say in terms of like big issues, the world's just like a little crazy right now, right? It's
Oh,
just a little
yeah.
crazy right now.
A little wacky.
And so, and we've got people who have all sorts of disparate views, and that's okay. Like, that's okay. Just we all have to really walk in with knowing that what's my purpose in being here? It's to take care of these kids. It's
Yeah.
to do my job.
Yes.
And kind of, even though we're influenced by all of the things that are going on in our country and in our world, and some of it's deeply serious, right? And I'm not saying don't pay attention to it, but it impacts people. And so I think that sometimes when somebody's just a little short or though, like maybe snaps or something, and we think, oh, what's wrong with them? It might be because there's something else going on at home, or they're being impacted by some of this outside stuff in a different world. So I think it's a time that we have to remember that we all need to just be a little kind
We
to
all
each
need
other.
grace. We need to give grace and we need to receive grace.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's lots of things there. So there's a lot, Carolyn. There's a lot
Yeah.
that we deal with before we ever sit down with a child
I
at a
know, and
table.
I love the fact that you're spelling it out, that the struggle is real. We have to, there's people, there's politics, the law, families, and the culture. I mean, there are so many factors that we are having to dodge and weave and figure out all of that. So I love the fact that, I mean, let's spell it out. I mean, we have to, this is what we're up against. What I liked what you said is because a lot of times we do feel siloed. And I loved when you're saying, no, get out there and get into the school so that there was a couple of times that I was like, that's really resonating with me. Especially when yeah, join a committee, become understand the teacher so they know who you are, so you are friendly, so it isn't a them Hatfields and McCoys, you against, us against them. But then I also liked your point about the psychologists and the other related services, because when you can discuss rather than discussing it everything at that IEP meeting and you have two differing opinions, that's awkward versus discuss, see where they're coming from. Not only the psych, but the teacher. What is your exact issue? So you know what their issues are, their concerns are. I mean, this is powerful. Um, and but then what? So we need to take that all into consideration. And what I love is what you've said several times is that we are in control. And I hope that I want to get into like, how do we, it's not all about control because we also need to, build relationships and get along
Mhm.
and actually be doing what's right for kids. I mean, not that we wouldn't, our goal is to always do what's right for kids. So I guess how do we do that?
Yeah, some specifics on that. So,
Yeah.
I do think that it's, really knowing and kind of understanding how do we do
How?
this? We know the why, right?
Yeah.
But how do we do that? And so I'm a big, big, big believer in, and this sounds goofy, but even before I was at a university, I was saying it's all about knowing what your discipline is, right? Knowing what the
Yes.
evidence-based practice is, knowing what the when I have a student who is an adolescent and with autism, how my assessment and how my recommendations are going to be different than when I have a student who has autism and is in the preschool or is in the elementary school. What are the things that are different? I know that because I am a consummate expert in autism, and I can sit with a teacher, I can sit with a parent, I can sit in a IEP meeting and talk about these are the things that happen developmentally. These are and I know this because like I'm up on my trainings, that
Mhm.
kind of thing. So one of the things that we have to do is to make sure that all of our systems, you talked about this in the very beginning, are um, serve us well, not just
Mhm.
the children, but serve us as the speech pathologists. So starting with the MTSS and RTI models at your school. And one of the things we love about that structure is that it can be done differently, but make sure that it's done appropriately and that you're part of that decision making, right? That it's not just the old days of like, okay, here's a student study team. Boom, shoot them for a speech eval. Let's do another speech
Yeah.
eval. Let's do another. No, 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 no. You have a part of how that operation is going, the prevention, when it's done. If you're involved in an RTI model, maybe you're part of it. I was part of designing one that worked really well, and we were able to keep children out of special education because they made progress in there. So knowing those models, knowing your and having your referral and assessment system set up so that it is that we are looking at all the range of disability, all areas of suspected disability, that we're looking at what the law tells us to look at. And it's not just, oh, we tested this kid and he didn't qualify here, so let's test him for speech and see if we're sneaking him in the back door. We're not doing that. Like, that's not. And all of these things, sometimes it takes time to shape these systems, but that IEP team that works together is critical. So your referral, your assessment, the service delivery models that you're using can't be sitting in your closet. There are times when we need to have children out, but we need to be in the classroom seeing. So if we're doing collaborative services or changing it up from during across the course of the year. I mean, all of these are like workshops in and of themselves, right?
Right, sure.
But that service delivery to make it, and you know what? It's more fun too when we're working with different ways, different people. We're not just having groups of students come in and out again. That's feeling like you're control, making sure that what you're doing with those students is literacy based. There's we're not just playing games, not that anybody would do that anymore, but what's the curriculum? What do we know? What's the Common Core or whatever standards are being used?
Absolutely. We need to know the system in order,
right, have that
to work
system
within it.
in place. Those IEP processes and procedures, you need, annual review meetings should not take more than an hour. It should be set who's taking the notes, who's running the meeting. How do we make sure everybody is there? It's not an option for the general education teacher not to be there. How do we make sure that happens? What time of day are we doing? All of those things are decided beforehand. Let's set up all the schedule for all of the meetings at the beginning of the year. We all work on electronic calendars now. And yes, children are going to move in and out and some things are going to change, but it's not a matter of like, oh, can we do this tomorrow? Because that's one of the things SLPs always get mad about. Like, they didn't even tell me there was a meeting. Well, that just shouldn't happen if we're all sitting in the room planning. So those kinds of planning things. And then, of course, dismissal criteria. You have to have that. And mainly, we have to talk about that when we enroll the student, right? It's not speech therapy is not a something that like you get a prize on your diploma if you're in speech therapy for 12 years. Like, it's like, what do we expect? When you go to the doctor, the doctor tells you this is the course of your treatment and this is what you can expect at the end of it. And we should give families and teachers and the children that information so they know what we're working on, because lots of other things are happening in their school and their classroom. So that having control and having I'm going to say a heavy hand and setting up the systems at the school, and especially if you happen to be assigned to multiple schools, you've got to have systems that are in place that you're not walking in to a surprise, right? Because those are the things that throw us off, right? So so don't be afraid to step into that leadership role. Like, and leadership doesn't mean you have a title necessarily or whatever, but it's taking control, taking the reins on the things that need to happen in your environment and everybody else's environment. When I teach the school-based issues class to my students in the fall every year, one of their assignments is to go out and interview multidisciplinary assessments teams. And they're required to put everybody on the team together, and they're required to do it in person as much as possible. And it's wonderfully delightful when the students come back the majority of the time and they say, wow, those people really like each other. And they were
Mhm.
all really like committed to the child. And they were all like had each other's back. And what happens? And they talk about what happens if they have a disagreement because they had a meeting before the IEP meeting, not to make decisions, we don't
Mhm.
predetermine,
Right.
but what are we thinking about, going in? How do we make the parent feel comfortable in the meeting? Having all of those things set, that means we're not walking into those meetings anxious. And that's what
Mhm.
also makes us feel like we're not in control. So, the being involved in other school activities and yeah, so, and I already mentioned evidence-based practice about that, but things like volunteering, um, doing, doing those things that, when I came into the field, people were like, I don't want to do bus duty. I don't want to do lunch duty. But you know what? That's where that's where, first of all, there's sunshine outside. There's children who are laughing and playing outside. That gives you some joy. It gives you time to observe students. It gives you time to see what typical students do. So maybe not every day, maybe but it also gives time to go visit with a teacher and those kinds of things, having lunch with the groups, those kinds of things, helping out, as part of holidays, whatever, field trips, the talent show. You don't have to do all of it, but what's the thing that can really help? I have one of my friends who's a speech pathologist at an elementary school. She kind of serves as um, the de facto assistant principal because the principal relies on her so much. And when children are really having issues, and then when they need to navigate with the district office, she's their voice because she knows everybody. So, one of the other things I'll just say one or two more things on this topic is your schedule.
Yes.
Your schedule needs to make sense for the school. And you need to, of course, build in time for meetings and those things, but you have to tell everybody about your schedule. It's not a secret, right? And then if it needs to change, you need to talk to them about it. But start with making sure the principal understands why you're doing what you're doing when you're doing it and where you are if you have to go to another school or if you have to go to the district office or whatever. So that those kinds of things. And then, advocacy for not just for you, but for other people at your school site. You'll be amazed what kind of mileage you get when you advocate for an aide, when you
Mhm.
advocate for a teacher, when you advocate, like, no, we can't put this one more child in this teacher's class because she's already dealing with these two. Like, and how do we support those other people? And if it's that just helps. So I think that when we do those things, especially when we stand out of ourselves, but also think of ourselves both ways, that really makes things going. But controlling the systems is like the number one thing that makes, kind of makes us feel like we're more in control.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is we have control. We don't always feel like we have control because we always feel like people are asking more of us and questioning us and expecting of us. So if we back up a minute and say, if we start out at the gate, first of all, knowing what our discipline is and where our scope, what is our scope of practice, which is very wide. Okay. But knowing that in and out and having the words of why we do what we do and the lens that we are taking and sharing that, like share that information so that then when we start putting our systems together, like our schedule, share that schedule so people know where you are, that they're not just thinking you're in the broom closet playing, Hungry Hippo. Um, that once you have your systems, just like you said, scheduling, how referrals happen, how assessments happen, and have that clear understanding that everybody understands what your expectations are. And I wanted to go back to dismissal. It should be discussed at every IEP meeting.
Absolutely.
So that everybody hears that we are working towards dismissal. So they just don't think, oh, but we want you to stay on because they're transitioning to the next grade level
Yes,
band. Like,
absolutely.
no, that is not what we're
Yeah.
here for.
Yeah.
And so when we say that and I guess my point would be that, sorry, that when you have solid systems, now you've got your boundaries.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
And to that, I co-opt the kids into the
Yes.
dismissal discussion.
Uh-huh.
So we in different places where I've worked, it's like the fifth grade. You tell that child, this is your last year of speech. Here's what we're going to do. You don't want to go to middle
Wonderful.
school in speech, right? So whatever, or whatever it is, right? Doing and having students be training students to run their own IEP meetings is phenomenal. I had a girlfriend that did that with her son, and they were moving from here back east, and he ran the IEP meeting as a fifth grader, and he told all this IEP team in Connecticut that he had no intention of being in speech, and he did everything. So you have to be uh, you know and tell the students what they're working on. Why? Because kids have stuff in their heads that they've heard the people in the classroom and the parents talk about, and those kinds of things. And the I don't I told Carolyn I can't read the chat at the same
Oh,
time that I'm
yeah.
doing this.
Emily
But
jumped
one,
in.
I think I saw that one was said, like, if you move into a school, and my girlfriend, who's now the like de facto assistant principal, when she started there, because her director was my friend said to her as the director, okay, look, I'm going to place you at this school that really needs a lot of help. The systems are a mess, and I need you to go in there for 2 years and clean up and get things organized. And then I will, maybe put you at a different school, whatever. So sometimes we have to do that, right? Sometimes you walk, so it takes time. It's not like you can go in. But if one of the things I tell my students is the joy of working in schools is that you have these long-term relationships with children, with families, and with your colleagues, right? It's not that. So I don't know if that was what that one was
Well,
about.
she was kind of she was supporting the thought of when she first started, she did feel very siloed, and she wished that she had been given this advice of making those connections, talk to the teachers, find colleague help, definitely get mentors, ask for a mentor from your when you're interviewing for the job, say what kind of support does the first, not even if it's not your first year as a speech pathologist, but it's your first year either in that district or
At
in that
that school.
school. What support am I going to be given? Because
Yeah.
there is that hidden curriculum, and it does not feel good when everybody comes on a Friday and everybody is wearing a purple and you walk in and you're not. And you're just like, oh, well, I just don't, I mean, it's like little things like that that people might not think about,
Oh, oh,
but how
okay.
that's a huge, I mean,
I have so many stories about that in my own career.
know.
Like, when I very first started, and I walked in and I sat in like the big chair in the faculty room,
Oh, and you didn't
and
know it
everybody went,
was.
and immediately I went, I did something wrong, but I
Yeah,
didn't know what it was,
yeah.
right? And that chair was Joe's chair, and nobody sat in Joe's chair. And it was like, whatever. But I'll tell you, even I worked, like I said, I'm from Southern California. I've worked in every different county in this area, and they're all different. But when I worked for a short time in Northern California. Oh my, very different. So, it, and you need somebody that you can call and say, like, what is this? Why are they doing, why are they
Right.
doing?
I definitely think is even if you are the only SLP, connect with other SLPs in your
Right.
district or neighboring district, depending on how big you
Yeah.
are. But we do have a question, if it's okay, Barbara, because I think this is a really good one. Thanks, Catherine, for posting it. How do you advocate for yourself and your profession when parents want speech services for life and districts don't back you up because it's cheaper than going to due process?
Well,
Ah,
yeah. So, and I've been in that situation too. So, so that's where you kind of need to that piece of working with the administration and the principal and having those. I used to tell people, come see me at 5 o'clock. Like, come see me after the building clears out, and then let's have a conversation, right? Because if you try and have that meeting with me where you really want to talk about stuff, and you want to do it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm going to be interrupted. It's going to be hard. So I think to go in and kind of have some of those conversations that are not just about that, it's really important how you frame it. So here's what I'm seeing at my school is that exactly what was said. Like I'm getting pushback. I'm not getting any support in terms of dismissal. Here's what my caseload looks like. I have X number of children. I have 80 children, let's say, or whatever it is. And then 10 of these children no longer need to be in service. So they've been in service. Give them some history, give them some data. And that every time they've been assessed, it's been recommended that they should lose. So now you might think that this is cheaper than going to due process, but in fact, when I have to spend my time, so there's different things. So really what you want to say is like, how can we work on some strategies? And there's short term and long term, right? So who are the kids that we can get off, right? That are ready to go. Nobody's trying to not serve children,
I,
but
yeah, I
doing that and having I'd like to work with you on a plan, right? That kind of thing. And um, I've been, and you can say, I'm feeling like I'm being dismissed, but if I show you like this is the problem when I'm doing feeding this, I can't, I'm not able to grow in these other areas that you're asking us to grow in.
I do what I want to say about when you're not when you have your systems in place and you talk about our goal is for dismissal, that is realistic. And when you're really realistic about discussing what is school-based service delivery, what our role is, and when you look at it as what sometimes you need to ask why, because sometimes they're wanting speech for life because they're only eligible for speech where they are needing more. The pushback, what I would push back with is looking at that child like what, because language, a language disorder infiltrates all academics, math, social, all of that. And so, but it could be more than just a language impairment. What else is going on? And so just being a speech only, the parents are not going to give up speech because that's their only hook. So really, are they being, are they really being serviced appropriately? We need to look at what are their
Mhm.
needs and really asking the parents, what are your concerns, being open, like tell me more about why what are you wanting, and be like, our lens is not this. We do not provide, we're not here to present new information. We're here to fill in those gaps that they don't have. We're here to remove the barriers so they're accessing the curriculum. I think it's really explaining to the staff what our scope is, and explaining to the families what our scope is. I think that's really important. And so everybody is on the same page of what we do, and be like, this sounds like, why don't, where Are they getting reading intervention? Are they going to math small groups? Look at it as their whole academic career. Where
Profile.
are the other supports that are needing? And it might really be that the parent just really wants the support. Now, there are some parents that just want every single service forever because they feel like more is better. And we talk about, and it's hard, they're not going to listen to, oh, least restrictive environment right now. I mean, it's baby steps on that, but data, have your data, show what you know, show what they know. And so it is so important that your evaluations are robust, that your IEP, your present levels are robust, put your systems in place so that it is very clear what we are working on and where we're going. Yeah.
Visual.
Yeah.
And usually when parents are resistant like that, it's because they're afraid.
Yes.
And they are fearful. They'll say, oh, well, they might slide backwards, which they don't,
Oh,
like
well,
that's
we
not,
can't, that again, we
but
aren't for what ifs.
yeah,
It is what's
and
presenting right now. We're not here for
right.
maintenance or what if they slip back? That is not, no.
So
Yeah, but it's hard
one
to
of
say. You don't say it like I just did because I didn't.
one thing that I think does is that you can do just system wise, try and get some agreement on let's do just something a little different and check back again in 6 weeks. So I'd like to see them in a group instead of just one-to-one. So let's do that for 6 weeks and then see what the progress is, right? Or I want to see them in class or whatever it is. Like change that up, but don't do the write in an IEP for a year and go, oh, thank goodness we're done with that. And then we'll see you again in a year and we'll have the same battle. Don't do that. Start trying to chip away at things. And we can do that. We can meet in IEPs as many times as we want. So
Right. Okay. As a school-based SLP, I'm like, well, no, wait a minute, hold up. I'm not wanting a bunch of IEPs. Like I don't, that's huge. That would be huge for me.
oh, and but I'll tell you what if we said, like, if you tried that, not for every child, but for those ones that are really hard, and you get that, we have those like a periodic change, and then get back together. It's better than having a crisis where we have to get together, and then if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Okay,
But
I think I'm hearing a bit better. At first, I was like, oh wait, I don't want listeners thinking that we're saying just tell the parent that we're just going to keep having these IEPs.
no,
But
no, 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 no.
what you say, set it
We're
up like this. Like let's say the parent has an unrealistic expectation that they think that their student needs one-on-one for an hour 3 times a week
right,
for I'm going to be sassy right now for remediation of one speech sound. I know that that's not
right,
it,
right.
but I'm just
Yeah,
saying, like, to the ridiculousness that you would say, all right, I hear, and tell me why that, and they're going to say, well, I want them to be remediated fast or whatever it might be.
yeah.
Ask them the why, and then you could say, well, let's like in the school setting, children are not expected to be taught one-on-one. It is a communal. This is a group where you're learning as we are going to try this. We can maybe front load it in the IEP itself. That maybe you're at the first 6 weeks, you're going to do a little bit more, but then you're going to say, I've written in the IEP that after the next 6 weeks or 9 weeks, whatever your system is, then we're going down to this. Now, at that
right,
point, you are getting the progress report. You're going to see the data. If the data doesn't show the growth, then we can relook. I think putting it more like
yeah,
that so that
yeah,
it's not,
yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely, lots of different ways. The other place that this comes in a lot that they want one-on-one is pragmatics. When you have a
Yes.
child, and like pragmatics one-on-one with a grown-up is like, why are we doing that, right?
Right. No.
Children learn from others. So yeah, we have to do. All right, I have a couple of things to just
Yeah. Yeah.
some other suggestions to just things to do to build your own autonomy, and just like, I don't know, doing your weightlifting inside of yourself. Definitely keep up with your professional literature, associations, and training. Absolutely,
Absolutely.
positively You need to make sure that you are going to a conference in person, like with other SLPs. Go to ASHA, go to CASHA, do, whatever the local thing is, but you've got to get out and be with your people. And it's critically important, and your district needs to support you in that. Keep up with the professional literature. I mean, and it's
And
very
listening to School of Speech, you're doing it right now. Thanks, y'all.
absolutely.
Right? I mean, come on.
The ASHA has done away with, made me sad, but they've done away with the special interest groups, but they have still have the ASHA communities. You can sign up for that, and that's a place where you can interface with that. Absolutely, and I've said this before, be an active member of your faculty at your sites. If they're training the third grade teachers on a new reading series, you want to be in that meeting. You have third graders, right? Doing some formal things with them, some otherwise one-on-one things, whatever, your SPED team, just being part of those teams. I wrote on here, don't be a Pollyanna. Right. I mean, we all have understand. I am kind of a Pollyanna, but also we don't want to be a Debbie Downer, right?
Right.
It's like everybody has a hard time. So, be collegial with folks, celebrate successes, and give credit to other people, but give credit to yourself. Celebrate those successes. Share data about students, about your dismissals, about successes, how many kids, add up how many kids met their IEP goals on your last, progress report. That's an amazing statistic, whatever. And, let people know, your people on your team, that you have their back. And, find the joy in spending time with children, the joy in spending time with your colleagues, who end up becoming lifelong friends, right? That's how, and I know that even I have in my family, the teacher gene is passed from auntie to niece. So I have two nieces who are teachers, and my nephew's wife, I think she counts, right? And these women have, their lifelong friends are part of everybody that taught, in the middle school or whatever. I guess I wrote an article once about students and planning for them to begin with the end in mind. So we talked about dismissal, but really having that conversation of what do we want this to look like at the end of this year's, next year, whatever. The last thing I will say is that I'm not always the person is a big fan of what people call work-life balance. I don't know, just the term kind of sometimes I think people think, oh, that means I'm not working hard. I don't have to work hard. But here's what I am a fan of: wellness. We need to take care of ourselves.
Oh, wellness,
yeah. Right? And this is really, really critically important. And that absolutely makes you feel like you are in control. When you go on a walk, and that can be at lunchtime, in the school, in the church, in the school parking lot. It can be let's go grab a yogurt after work. It can be any of those kinds of things, giving yourself a special treat. But take care of yourselves and your family, because when we are the caregivers of people, not one single family who has a child with a disability thought that was the train they were going to be on, right?
So no one chose that.
We have that hard job of helping them. But then we have to do what they call at USC care for the caregivers, right? So you have to take care of yourself, and that is on you, and that is autonomy. To take care of yourself. And when you have vacation, take it. and even if it's like, let's just go to the beach for the day, or let's go on a walk with the family and the dog and, whatever, to be happy and enjoy our jobs and
Yeah.
enjoy the work that
Find the
you do
joy.
and celebrate. Carolyn, thank you
Yeah.
so much
Oh
for,
no, thank you. This is a very important conversation. There's more that we could definitely unpack, but I think you definitely have given us a lot to think about. Autonomy isn't waiting for permission, right? And it's not about fighting. It's about understanding. You understanding the system, and then the system understanding us. It's that it is so interconnected, and I think that's really impossible and so important. I love also that positioning ourselves as leaders within the system was important point that you made, and I love that. And so everyone that's listening, thank you. I think we just need to know that autonomy doesn't happen at once, right? You can't just all of a sudden walk in tomorrow and say, okay, everything's changing, y'all, we're gonna change the, right? No, it is small, intentional little decisions and changes that you're gonna make over time. So anyway, Barbara, thank you so much for sharing your insight. I mean, I have so many more questions, and I hate that we are needing to leave. I want to thank everyone listening. Barbara, thank you for taking your time with us and giving us your time and everything that you were sharing. I love your insight. Thank you everyone that's listening, because what she's saying is, we need to keep up on our craft and listening to School of Speech with all the amazing clinicians that come on. We are a community here with School of Speech. We are a community, and so I love us all collaborating together. So I appreciate everybody that's coming, and I love when I see returning names. I'm starting to see that, and I love it. So I just want to ask if this episode resonated with you guys out there in listening land. Share it with your colleagues that need to hear that School of Speech is out there. Don't forget that you can earn your 0 0.1 ASHA CEUs by completing the course modules inside your speech therapy PD account. And you, if you're listening live, need to do that today. But okay, guys, until next time, keep learning boldly, think critically, and keep advocating for the professional voice that you bring to the table. All right, guys, until next time,
thank you,
bye.
everybody. Bye-bye. Good luck.